Girls, and welcome to episode 136 of Love at First Scent with me, Persolaise, coming to you today from YouTube, and a very, very special episode we've got in store for you today because we're going to be focusing on some extraits from Chanel. For those of you who are watching the recording, you may not be aware that just before doing this live broadcast, I did a special episode on Chanel number 5, and I will try to link to that in the video description below, or perhaps somewhere up here as soon as I can. And that's probably a good place to start, because in this video we will not be talking about number 5, even though that is the undisputed queen of the Chanel number 5 extraits. I think what I will say at this point is, if you want to hear my take on number 5, including the extrait, then look at the video description below, where you will find a link to the number 5 video. And in that video, incidentally, I talked about all of the versions of number 5 that are currently available. The EDT, the EDP, and the low and the Au Première version has got its own video as well. So let me go on the tablet and make sure things are coming through. Thank you very much, all of you, for tuning in. First comment goes to Olfactophiles, who says hello. Keith says, got my coffee and I'm all ready to go. Fantastic. Angela says hi there again. Ilias says round 2, absolutely. A2Z1 says, I like your high-tech covering of the camera lens in between your episodes. Yes, I thought you might appreciate that. If you've got a better solution, let me know. Cynthia says hello. Olfactive Story says hello. Stefan says, Coco extrait is my favorite, as there is no extrait of Egoist. Yeah, wouldn't it be great if they did an extrait of Antaeus? I mean, because it is pretty strong already anyway. Rich Mitch says, did you know that Christopher Sheldrake of Serge Lutens fame is the Chanel master of ingredients? Yes, absolutely. It is thanks to Chanel's generosity and open-mindedness that Sheldrake is able to work for Lutens. And of course, Sheldrake had a lot to do with the exclusive when they were launched. Hello from San Diego, California, says Laurie. Cuir De Russie number 22, says Angeline. Ashfaq says hello again. RISP couldn't find another time to mess around. Okay. Olfactophile says hi, Karine. Yes, this is so fantastic for me that we're all kind of joining in like this. Anna says dobry wieczór. Dobry wieczór. Pani Aniu, really thrilled to finally catch a live greetings from Essex. And Flackernes says hello again from Germany. Okay. If there will be an Antaeus extrait, all my winters will be Antaeus infused, says Ilias. Maybe we should send a message to Chanel to say, give us an Antaeus extrait. Eric says, I'm woefully behind on the extraits. I have a 90s bottle of Coco Parfum, but it's still sealed. Hello from Houston, says Sorry Remix. Antaeus extrait would be the chypre to end all chypre, says Stefan. Okay. I will get to more comments in due course. Right, so why an episode of Chanel extraits? Well, I suppose why not, because they are so beautiful. But also, as I've mentioned in a few of the other live broadcasts I've done recently, I'm in a bit of an extrait mode at the moment, partly because of an article that I'm working on, but also I think partly because of what's happening. And I seem to be thinking... I seem to be wanting to get away in my personal perfume wearing, get away from redundancies, from anything that is unnecessary. So on any given day, if I sort of think, oh, should I wear this? Should I wear that? I almost sort of am in the mode where I think, why am I messing around? Time is precious. Perfume is precious. Why don't I wear some of the most beautiful things that I've got in my collection? And of course, some of the most beautiful things, some of the most luxurious compositions tend to be the extraits. And I don't know whether that is a reflection of what's happening at the moment, where you do feel that you need to make every single perfume wearing experience count. And so yes, I guess that does take me to the extraits. There's a comment here saying, I didn't realize it's New Year's Eve today. Sir Persolaise is looking fabulous. Bye-bye Corona sweatshirts. Thank you very much. Well, what do you mean it's New Year's Eve? Is it because of this? Well, it's celebration time, right? Any chance Olivier Polge is watching the live? Please, Antaeus Extra, says John MD. Well, you never know. This isn't to sort of denigrate EDTs and EDPs, because I love them as well. And I was talking with somebody the other day actually about Guerlain's Ambi Rouge, which is one of my absolute all-time favorites. My favorite version of Harry Rouge is unquestionably the EDT. And even though I own the Extrait, and I think I own every version of it, I've got the EDP, I've got the various sports versions and the low, I will always go to the EDT because it feels as though that in that EDT format that the scent comes into its own most strongly. A few thoughts as well on Extrait. For those of you who may not be aware, eau de toilette, eau de cologne, eau de parfum, Extrait, pure perfume, whatever, are supposed to be indications of how concentrated a perfume is. In other words, how much of the actual concentrate has been diluted in how much solvent. The solvent in most of the cases here, in all the cases here, but usually in perfumery being ethanol, alcohol. But there is no rule that actually says that you can only call something an extrait or a pure perfume if it has a minimum concentration of the juice, of the concentrate. So there isn't a rule out there that says, no, you can't call it an extrait if it's 12%. You can only call it an extrait if it's 15%, which is kind of interesting. Any of you who have dabbled in perfume making will be aware that just because you concentrate one formula at 20% and then a completely different formula at 5%, that doesn't necessarily mean that the 20% one is going to feel more powerful, more diffusive, stronger than the 5% one, because it completely depends on what the formula actually are. So concentration isn't always going to be an indication of how the perfume performs. And in any serious perfume making endeavor, when a formula has been kind of agreed on and finalized, what the makers will then do is test it out at different concentrations. So they may test it at 10%, at 12%, at 14% to see how it performs. And sometimes they get to one concentration, so they may get to the 12 and find that actually, for whatever reason, because of the interaction of some of the materials, it feels more powerful and more diffusive and more concentrated at 12% than it does at, say, 14 or 16. And that's just the magic of perfumery. That's the alchemy of perfumery. But the only rule, if you like, that does exist is that within a brand, within the product lines of the brand, the extrait should be more concentrated than the EDP, should be more concentrated than the EDT. So as we are talking about Chanel, if we just take the most obvious Chanel example, number 5, the EDT is supposed to be, should be the less concentrated than the EDP, which should be less concentrated than the extrait. Where the eau première and the low come into it, I'm not sure. Although low, I think, does low actually technically count as an EDP? I'm not sure. But that's the only kind of rule. And that sort of makes sense as a rule. So again, if you were to take, I don't know, if you were to take Guerlain's Samsara, you would expect the EDT, you would want the EDT to be the least concentrated, and the brand would be obliged to make the EDT the least concentrated, then the EDP, then the extrait. So that's the only kind of rule. But just because these are extraits here that we've got doesn't mean that they're all going to be like, 20% of concentrate. Some of them may be far below that, especially some of the older ones. So before we smell, and I promise we will smell in a few minutes, let me look at some comments because I don't want to miss out too many comments. Olfactive Stories says, really like number 22, and Misia, I'm wearing 1932 lately, and I've got the 1932 extrait here somewhere. Florida says, kind of silly, but I'd love an extrait of Pour Monsieur. Just got the EDT and love it. Yeah, I wonder if that's one of the ones that would work best as an EDT, actually. I wonder. Bois Des Iles is a love, says Laurie. Do you think Antaeus is too masculine for a woman to wear, says Effie. Absolutely no way. Absolutely no way at all. Wear what you like. Cedric Eccentric says, oh no, we've had that comment, sorry. Eric says, I can't wait to hear your thoughts on Coromandel Extrait. I hope I'm going to be able to smell all of these ones that you want me to smell. A2Z1 says, am I the only one who thinks that Cristal is highly underrated? You just don't hear about it much in the perfume community. Is it underrated? It shouldn't be. It's fantastic. I love Cristal. I should do a separate video on Cristal, like maybe a sort of classic scent video. No, it's beautiful, beautiful, beautiful citrus chypre. Absolutely. And Angeline says Cristal is indeed totally underrated. I love the EDT, which was the first version, wasn't it? I think that is better again than the updated version. Rich Mitch says concentration rules are a bit of a myth, sort of like master perfumer title. There's no legal definition. Lalwa says L'eau is an EDT, Eau Première is an EDP. Okay, thank you very much. Stefan says, always found it funny that I got EDTs with 80% volume, but Muster Cartier Parfum is also 80%. There you go. Q George, yeah, I'm with you. A to Z and one about Cristal. What do you think of Reminiscence Patchouli, says Elvis. That's a bit off topic, but I like it. April Pritz says, yes, Cristal, love that melon note. Do a video on Cristal, says Angeline. Okay, I will do my best. And Cristal is a scent I would never wear, but love smelling from the bottle, says Panopti Pandora. Does that make any sense? Yeah, absolutely, it makes sense. Tyler, I'm wearing beige today. Just wish it was slightly warmer. They should have called it yellow. But I guess that wouldn't be very on brand. Can you imagine? Yellow Chanel. Kimberly says, in Hong Kong, we can only get parfum of Gardenia and Coromandel nowadays. I haven't smelt the Gardenia one, actually. Victoria says, on an Extrait binge as well at the moment. Number 5, Vol de Nuit, L'Heure Bleue, Something in the Air. Yeah, I think there is, isn't there? There is. I really like number 19 lately, says Pisebi, especially the EDP. Please start smelling. Yes, you're right. The Extrait of number 19 is extraordinary. The thing is, the problem is, where do you start? Okay, let me start with the one that I smelt again for the first time in ages. And oh, gosh. This is Cuir De Russie, or Cuir De Russie. So what we've got with the extraits at Chanel is that some are obviously current compliant versions of old ones, and some are brand new compositions. So Cuir De Russie is an Ernest Beau composition from 1924. So I guess this is a case of trying to make it compliant with today's requirements. But the likes of 1932, Beige, Jersey, Coco, Coco Noir. Obviously, they're not the sort of archive scents. They're not from the archives. Gardenia, I think, actually is an old one, unless I'm mistaken. So here we go. Cuir de Russie, again, one of my all-time favorites. Collectively, it is just so fantastic that Chanel are keeping their extraits in such beautiful shape, because you could just have this in your collection, this as your collection, and never need to wear anything else. And I say this as somebody who loves so many perfumes from so many other brands. Anyway, Cuir de Russie. Oh, God, just yes. It's so good. It's so good. Oh, I feel like weeping, actually. It's so beautiful. You know when sometimes music gives you chills, or like you see a painting that it just brings tears to my eyes. It's so stunningly gorgeous, and so physical, and there are some things that only perfume can do. Each art form has its strength. Nosegasm, says Stefan. Yeah, if you like, but no, braingasm. I think braingasm. Well, actually, all gasms are braingasms, aren't they? I don't know. There are some things that only certain art forms can do. So, cinema has its strengths and does some things that only cinema can do. Playing with time, I think, that's a really, really good cinema thing. Messing with your head and playing with time. Painting does things that only painting can do. Theatre, music. And there are some things that only perfume can do. And I think perfume can make associations, or bring about associations in your head that you didn't think were possible, and also, so can literature, so can cinema, but it makes them internal for you. It makes them It makes you feel as though they're really, really happening inside your head, in the very interior of your soul. Which is probably why there's all this talk about, perfume being a shortcut to memory and all the rest of it. And that is true. I think that's overplayed. But the thing with perfume and memory is that it often makes you remember memories that you didn't think you had. That's the interesting thing about perfume and memory. It unlocks things. You suddenly think, oh my goodness, I didn't realize that I had actually internalized the smell of, my grandmother's garden when she was living in that cottage down at that's the thing about perfume and memory. And perfume takes you to places inside yourself that you didn't know existed. It unlocks stuff in a way that no other creative artifact, composed artifact seems to. Cuir De Russie, keep me on track, folks, okay? Because there are going to be so many nosegasms, braingasms here. But I should say, again, just for the benefit of people who may not have smelt this, why it's called Russian leather, because there was a trend for calling perfumes Russian leather. I'm not, there probably is something that makes Russian leather Russian, as a, and Spanish leather Spanish, etc., etc. But it is a leather. It's a classic leather scent. Somewhere a kind of happy meeting point of the smoothness, velvetiness of suede, but also doesn't hold back on the more animalic side of tannery notes, maybe quinolines. But it's also got such a precisely sort of judged irisy violet citrus note that I'm 100% with Luca Turin when he says that this is like the quintessence of luxury, that you just cannot imagine a perfume smelling more luxurious. And you can think of any kind of rendition of or incarnation of luxury you like, the interior of the most luxurious car you can imagine, the most luxurious clothing you can imagine, the most luxurious hotel you can imagine, the most luxurious shoes, whatever. They are all the spirit and the soul of Cuir De Russie. I could just shed tears of joy wearing this. And I love the exclusive version. I love the EDT. I really, really like the EDP. I prefer the EDT, I think. But this is so smooth and warm and cocooning and carnal and just the right kind of angular as well, like a kind of leopard or a cougar or a panther that's coming to. We mustn't say panther because that's a Cartier animal, but you know what I mean. It's so feline in such a striking, sensuous way. It's just, I can't do too many of them because I may explode. It's a joy to watch you enjoy this one. I hope so, Angela, because I think a lot of people watching this. Eric says, when did you purchase that bottle, if you don't mind me asking? Very, very recently. This is a recent one. How old is your CDR Parfum? It's literally from the last few months. Pisebi says, never smelled any Extrait from Chanel. Wish I could borrow your collection. I wish you could come over and smell it. And we could all just talk about it. Flaconess says, feels like falling in love for the first time when you smell something so beautiful. Absolutely. Frag Chaitan says, has Jean-Claude Elena ever done a fragrance offered in Extrait form? Ooh, well, he must have. There are a few Hermès Extraits that he did. Voyage d'Hermès and Terre d'Hermès come in a form that Hermès sell as parfum, but I don't really know the answer to that. Perfume is magic, pure and simple, says Angela. Absolutely. First time intentionally smelling Guerlain Vetiver, says Florida, messed with my brain so much, it scared me, instantly shot me back to my early childhood. Ooh, you're making it sound as though that was a little bit traumatic, so I hope it was all right. Eric says, Elena did Kelly Kalash in Parfum, and his Jour Parfum, yes, thank you, absolutely, is one of my top Hermès perfumes. Bruton says, I feel that way sometimes when reading a good book. Some authors have such a way with words, can put you right there vividly in the moment. For me, it's Dennis Lehane, a master. And Gino says, hi, I'm late from Singapore. You're more than welcome. Pisebi, I'll message you when I come visit UK next time. Absolutely. Victoria, Cuir De Russie EDT is amazing. I must get the Extrait, and Coromandel Extrait as well. Christmas is coming. Yes, it is. Eau de Merveille and Parfum too, says Effie. Yes, and they actually called it Parfum de Merveille, didn't they? Right, I need to move on because otherwise we'll be here all day. Let's do another one. We should do Bois Des Iles, because again, that's another Ernest Beau original. Florida Sam's no great memories. I think my grandfather wore vetiver, but I never knew what it was. Okay. I spoke with Benjamin at Parlement de Parfum, says Cole. He told me that Woody Perfecto is homage to Cuir De Russie. Oh, interesting. I should resmell it. That is interesting. Okay, here we go. This is Bois Des Iles. completely transporting again, but in a different way, in a completely different way. You also want to kind of make sure that you get these lids on tight because you absolutely don't want any naughty evaporation. Anna says, we agree with Bruton. Hilary Mantel does that for me. She also includes a lot of fragrance descriptions in her book. Yes, and Hilary Mantel is a big, big fragrance fan. I think she once famously said that you could write a whole essay on Mitsuko. She absolutely loves including smells. Angela says, can you imagine us all arriving at Maison Persolaise en masse to try all your wares? If we could do it, I would love to have you all round. Bois Des Iles, which was first released in 1926. I'm gonna... Now, somebody said, Ashfaq says, yes, the sandal one, the sandalwood one. This is the sort of most sandalwoody of the extraits. So in terms of construction, and I'm going a little bit nose blind up here because having all this beautifulness here, it is the one which presents florals in probably the most sort of I was going to say contemplative because there's something very meditative, contemplative about number 22 as well, but with the curves and the colors of the florals taken out. Bois des Iles does have all of the curves and colors of the florals. You know, it's a very red floral scent. You know, jasmine, rose, etc. But the sandalwood comes out front and center, and it's just so creamy and silky and smooth. Did I see somebody here saying, Victoria saying, Bois des Iles Extrait is different, so different from the EDT. It is actually, you're right, that the EDT is beautiful, but the Extrait, I think, again, maybe because of a higher proportion of base materials, they may have used maybe a higher quality of some of the materials. It just takes things up a notch and feels like a sort of altar of sandalwood. Gino says, curious how much people put on with these extraits. Is a drop enough or a couple of drops to be diffusive? I have to say, I do more than a couple of drops because I just think if you're going to... So what would I do? I would probably end up doing, you know, like a bit here, a bit there, a bit there, a bit... I would probably be more in the region of about 6 or 7, but I don't hold back when I wear perfume. I don't like holding back. Elias says, Bois des Iles EDT for me is a beautiful aldehydic cola sandalwood. Yeah, I like that description. Keith says, Chanel classify Cuir De Russie as a feminine fragrance, and I don't get that at all. I think it's one of the most gender-balanced fragrances I have smelt. Yeah, I mean, in fact, if anything, you know, if I had to choose one categorization for it, I'd probably put it more in masculine rather than feminine, but there you go. The Extrait is the best quality cashmere jumper you can get, says Victoria. Yes, I like that. That's a good description. But to me, I don't get clothing and those sorts of, although I get the cashmere jumper. To me, this is temples. This is a place. This is offerings to the gods at an altar. It's that kind of vibe I get from Bois des Iles. And foreignness. You know, I really, really, really am wary of the word exotic and exoticism. Because of cost, I'm really frugal with extraits, says Angela. Yes, absolutely. But you know, it's called Bois des Iles. I'm not sure why, you know, what islands they were meant to be and where are these islands that smell so beautifully woody. But it does have a kind of 1920s take on exoticism and foreignness. And see, I'm getting that cola thing now. You're absolutely right. Gino says, interesting, couldn't they put these extraits in spray form, or is there a reason why they're in splash form? I think that's just because of, partly because of tradition. Some of the extraits come in a spray, but not all of these ones. So I'm sure you can get number 5 extrait in a spray. I've got a nice vintage number 19 extrait in a spray. I don't know if that still comes in a spray. I should label this one, and then we should move on. It's inspired by Tchaikovsky opera. Oh, I don't know that. I absolutely don't know that. So could somebody verify that? I'm not particularly hot on my Extrait references. I want to show you this actually before we smell another one. And if my mum ever watches this video, she's going to kill me because the thing that she gave to me a while ago doesn't work anymore. I don't know if I've shown you this before, but this was something that she was given a while ago. It was a special sort of presentation gift set of Coco Mademoiselle. And it's relevant to this today because it's got a tiny little bottle of Coco Mademoiselle Extrait, but it's broken, and it wasn't broken when she gave it to me because what happened was you wound it up, and it's the mechanism. I don't know whether a spring has snapped, but you wound it up, and then you got this very, very charming little music box thing spinning around, and it played the tune, I think, from the very first Coco Mademoiselle advert. So sorry, it doesn't work anymore, but the scent in there is in good shape. The things that brands used to make, right? Okay, we ought to smell. I think we had a few people saying Coromandel, so we ought to smell Coromandel, and actually that's one of the more recent ones, okay? Because the Coromandel Parfum came out in 2019, so as far as I'm aware, it is actually the latest addition to the Extrait line, and I really, really love Coromandel. Perhaps at the moment the EDT more than the EDP. Fantastic patchouli scent, fantastic sweet suede-like chocolatey patchouli. And somebody, Ashfaq has also already mentioned Serge Lutin's Borneo. They are similar to each other. I tend to go more for the Coromandel, although I suppose what I should say is I tend to prefer, Coromandel is one of the ones that I absolutely love on Madame Persolaise. Whereas I would probably wear the Lutins on myself. So this is Coromandel Extrait, I would imagine, put together by Olivier Polge. And I wore it actually on myself the other day, and I was struck by how dirty the patchouli becomes towards the end, how prominent. This is less about the white chocolatey sweetness of the EDP, the exclusive EDT EDP version, and is actually much funkier than you would expect. It is much more about the earthy, moist, wet, soil-covered patchouli. And it's kind of got a funkiness to it that you wouldn't really expect from a Chanel, but it is there. I wore it a few hours before going to bed, and then when I woke up the next day, I kind of thought to myself, oh, where's that patchouli smell coming from? And I'd forgotten that I'd dabbed on a little bit of Coromandel. And even now, actually, the slight darkness of the patchouli is coming through. It is much darker than the EDT EDP, and the resins, balsams are all obviously really beautifully balanced. Heavy reliance here on benzoin, and there is that sweetness at the top that's kind of pushing the scent out, lifting it up. But the emphasis is much more on the base here than it is in the other versions. Gino says, been wanting to get Coromandel Extrait but been hesitating because of the price and heard many stories of the bottle breaking upon unboxing. Oh dear, that wouldn't be very good. Lucas says, I have the Coco Mademoiselle music box and it works. Wow, sorry for yours. You're the only other person I'm aware of who's got that one. Victoria says, I think of Bois Des Iles Extrait as one of the most silky smooth perfumes. Bruton says, yes, Coromandel is beyond words gorgeous. A2Z1, Mademoiselle's only claim to fame is riding the coattail of the masterpieces that came before it. Bit harsh, okay. Jeff says, Coromandel Extrait is really good, but I prefer Coromandel EDT first edition. It's dirtier. You think that one's dirtier? Interesting. Victoria says, I heard someone compared Coromandel Extrait with vintage Shalimar. See, now that you say it, but you don't get such a strong patchouli thing in Shalimar. Shalimar is so much more about the amber leather. But maybe the interplay between the citrus and the base. But no, I didn't think Shalimar. And Bruton says, I actually love the patchouli in Coromandel. I'm fortunate to have it in all three concentrations. The EDT is a decant. Okay, and just so that we can smell some more, I'm going to label this and move on. And what else have we got here that I could share with you? There's too many. There's too many to share. I reckon. Oh, I know what we'll do. I think maybe we should do number 22, just because I love 22. Coromandel can't be bad. It's only gorgeous. I love to wear it every now and then, says Tomasz. It is very good. Now, 22 is another one of the Ernest Beau originals, and it was first released in number 22. Oh, there you go. Ashfaq says number 22, please. Now, 22, of course, is fascinating in relation to number 5, because you can almost see the perfumer's mind working when composing number 22, because number 22 is like taking the idea of number 5 and seeing how far you can push it. So in terms of its structure, it's an aldehydic floral, the same as number 5, but it's almost like Ernest both sort of thinking, how far can I take this cleanliness idea? How far can I take the aldehydes? How far will the flowers allow themselves to be carried by the aldehydes? And I think the answer is very, very far indeed. Much further to the heavens than number 5. So if number 5 Extrait is like the angels bringing their beautiful silvery gifts to you, number 22 is like the angels taking you with them to where they live. So it feels like you're being pulled through these silvery clouds and going into this unearthly land that number 5 has come from to you, if you see what I mean. They're either ends of a journey. Number 22 is... I wore the Extrait the other day again, and it is just beyond description. So pure, so unsullied. You know, it is angelic. If we sort of think of angels as being such pure beings, are angels meant to be beings, or such pure creations because they don't sort of have a physical form? That's number 22. And as I think I've said before in some of these videos, what I love about number 22 is this incense note running through it. I don't even know if it actually contains incense or olibanum, but it does seem to have this smooth, cold, chilly, mineralic incense thing running through it, to the point that I've often included it on my list of my favorite incense perfumes. It is so like Bois Des Iles made me think of, you know, going to temples and offering sandalwood offerings to the gods at temples. Number 22 is like I've just been taken up into the heavens. The florals absolutely are present, but this is way more about those aldehydes, and they just sparkle. They're just catching the light like diamond dust. It's if every single video that I did had me faced with so much beauty, I think my head would just explode. A few comments. Olfactive Stories says, I have 22 EDT, such an aldehyde bomb, quite different from the EDP, but I love both. Yes, and I think I probably prefer the EDT as well. Stefan says, it used to have incense. They got rid of it in the EDP. Ah, interesting. Number 22 has this interesting sweet cleanness, says Flaconess. Stefan says, I got a vintage eau de cologne 22, incense very noticeable. I would like to try that. Gavin says, what do you think is the closest number Chanel to 22? Oh, I don't know. I'd have to... well, I guess 5. It would have to be 5, wouldn't it? Rich Mitch says, Uncle Serge wants £280 for 100 mils of the Borneo, because the Borneo is now part of the Gratte-Ciel connection. Yeah. And somebody called Renaud Salmon, sorry, has just tuned in saying 22 vintage definitely seems to have incense in it. Thank you very much for clarifying that, says the man who is based in the land of incense. I wonder what quality of incense it was. John David says, the connection between memory and perfume isn't overplayed at all. Of the 5 senses that we have, scent is the one that comes into contact with the brain most immediately and directly. Angela says, need a few creeds to level you out. Yes, actually, yeah, that would sort of make me appreciate what I'm smelling. Will you discuss number 18, says David? Not today, I'm afraid, because we're just focusing on the extraits and I don't have an extrait of number 18. In fact, I'm not sure there is an extrait of number 18. We Are Sentient says 21 or 23 are the closest to 22. Boom! Very good. And let's do one more. Let's do one more. I ought to label this one as well. So this was 22, and then I will leave you in peace because I've taken up far too much of your time today. We should do Madame Persolaise's favorite, which is Coco, as I think I've mentioned on several different occasions. There's the Coco Noir that came out many years after Coco, but this is the Coco Extrait. I'm not sure exactly when Coco Extrait came out. I know that Coco itself is a 1984 composition, and I wouldn't be surprised if an extrait came out round about the same time, actually. I think it has been part of the Chanel catalogue for the longest time. Now, I've never really considered Queen of the 80s, says Stefan. Absolutely. I've, to be completely honest, I must confess, I've never considered Coco to be amongst my favourite Chanels. Hugely, hugely successful. It is without any question Madame Persolaise's favourite. To me, I've always just thought that I wanted it to be a tiny, tiny little bit more distinctive. There you go. A2Z1 says Coco, the best one in the bunch. There you go. And Gavin says Coco and Portrait of a Lady. I think she's my scent twin. She may well be. Coco is my favourite Chanel. You see, for a lot of people, it is their favourite Chanel, says Anna. Jeff Hart says Coco, Simply Heaven, the best of Chanel ever. Okay, so see, I'm just wrong. I've always just wanted it to be a tiny little bit more distinctive. But you see, the extrait is really, really good. And I suppose what is distinctive about it, because it does have a personality, obviously, I mean, I don't want to say that it's completely bland and totally devoid of any personality, is it's got that orangey kind of fizz. It is very, very 80s. Gavin says, I think Coco was the last Chanel that had the classical Chanel blueprint. Yeah, you may well be right. You may be right. It does feel 80s in the sense that it's aiming towards bigness, but it kind of holds back, and it doesn't have that same bigness or largesse or grandiose quality as Poison or Samsara or their like. You know, it's almost as though Chanel thought, okay, we kind of need to do the 80s thing, but we need to hold back a little because we still need to be Chanel. It's very much, in the vein of Opium and Cinnabar. In fact, actually smelling the Extrait now, I'm thinking, I never realized how close it is to Estée Lauder Cinnabar. So that kind of spicy, cinnamony, floral, warm, ambery composition with a sparkling citrus top. Coco might be my favorite pillar, says Eric. See, for loads of people, Coco is actually Chanel. Angela says, I think if you say it's bland, Madame Persolaise might not be pleased. She wouldn't care. She'll just carry on wearing it anyway. Loved Cinnabar, says Angela. So it is, and maybe that's what makes it a little bit 80s, and by that I mean dated, just a tiny bit. I'm being really, really harsh on it, and actually, it is good, but it's just not amongst my favorites. You describe Cinnabar much better than it smells on my skin, says Jamie. Oh, I love Cinnabar, but the Extrait is, I think what it is that maybe, if you compare it to, for example, something like Chanel's Gabrielle, which is so innocuous, so wanting to play it safe, Coco feels as though maybe it was a sign of things to come, in that scents for women had to start becoming just a tiny little bit more office friendly. And I think maybe there's something about Coco that is just a little bit too office friendly for my tastes. I want it to be a little bit more office unfriendly. But that's just me, scents do need to be office friendly sometimes. Gavin says, I think Chanel are best when doing refined versions of big fragrances. Original Sycamore, Coco, Coromandel. When they go for refined versions of lighter fragrances, you end up with an expensive nothing. Very, very astute point. Thank you. I like that. Angela says Coco Noir is more interesting to me. Fair enough. And Daniel says Coco Extrait stays on the skin for days. So yeah, that's my, and it is beautiful. Absolutely, need to say that I think it is beautiful. But there's just something a little bit too innocuous about it. And there is nothing innocuous about Madame Persolaise. So, lots we haven't smelt, but do check them out. As a whole, as a collective, the Chanel Extraits really are something else. Thank you so much for watching this episode. I will try to do a blotter update. I'm drawn to the Bois Des Iles blotter. Oh. What was the first one I smelled? It was Cuir De Russie. Where have I put that blotter? I probably won't be. Oh, here we go. That's the one that. It's the iris. It's the iris. Juba says, I do miss that fragrances have become way too safe, office friendly. Cuir De Russie is. I think this is. Did I say whether Cuir De Russie is in my top 10? I think it is. It might soon be getting into my top 5, I think. Thank you so much for watching. Please consider subscribing to my channel if you haven't already done so. Please leave comments, ask questions. I usually get round to them in due course. Please click on the little bell to get notifications of my videos, and please consider supporting my work on Ko-fi. You will find a link to that in the video description below. But until then, be good. Like I've said in a few of the recent live broadcasts, I'm trying to line up some live interviews for the last week of October, so watch out for those. And then we're going to take a bit of a break from the videos in November because of other stuff that's happening. So that's why I want to end with some good interviews, and then we will be back maybe at the end of November, beginning of December with some pre-Christmas videos. But until then, stay safe, be good, and wear your favorite perfumes. Thank you very much, everybody, and thanks for helping me get to 5,000 subscribers. Take care. Bye.